Today, I'm going to be showing you an app development roadmap, and we're going to go through the steps. I'm going to be explaining to you what the process means at each stage, and if there are any questions, you can actually leave it in the comments below. So now, the first stage is actually going to be research planning. I know majority of founders usually run away from this, but if you can, as much as possible, if you can, sublet this out, but you have to do your research. You have to know what exactly you are building, and you have to test what put up something out there like an MVP, or think about what your product is going to be, because without this you would not be able to proceed to the next stage. You may not even know what you want to build fully. So now, in the beginning, you would have to be thinking about your marketing strategy, in as much as though there are some apps that don't rely so much on marketing, like in terms of pushing out, except you are building for a particular community, or a secluded amount of persons that you can easily push your app to. But if it's more than that, you definitely need a marketing strategy. So now we have a lean canvas. A lean canvas is more like a business plan. I'm going to add a link below to something like that, a template on how to build your own lean canvas. So it has things like what problem is your app trying to solve, the solutions. It's more like a mini business plan, like I said before. So you would have, an holistic idea of what you want to build all in one place. So the next one is your brand assets. So very, very important. Once you are done with planning and everything, you need your brand assets. Your brand assets would help you, or help the developers, the design team, to understand. A lot of founders do miss this out. Though your branding doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to have something to present to the designers in order to bring your design or your app to life. Then we have PRD. So PRD is like more like a product requirement document. So you actually need this. I'm also going to send a link. Most of the times, your lean canvas is inside your PRD, right? So your product requirement document is a document that lists your functions, your features, everything that has to be inside your app. Your PRD would contain it, and even your devs, your stakeholders. If you as a product manager is creating it, the stakeholders, the founders would have to see this. But if you are the founder creating this, you would have to have something to present to the devs, in order to, like, it's just like it's a centralized system to tell them this is exactly what your product is talking about, so that they would all understand it in one go. So at the end of the day, when you have done this, you have your research and your audience avatar. This carries a lot. This today may look simple, but they carry a lot. So with all the informations you have here, it will now give you the decision to choose whether your app is going to be a mobile app or it's going to be a desktop app. So it's also very, very important when you are building. You can actually choose one part. It doesn't have to be you going towards both routes, right? So you can, go for a web app, right? You can choose to use a web app approach, where users will be able to access your app from the web, instead of downloading the mobile app. And mobile app comes with a lot of its own issues, like Apple Store registration, iOS, and lots more. So you would have to make this, and not all apps are suitable for mobile in the beginning, especially when it's an MVP. While some apps you have no choice than to go the mobile route. If, for example, you want to be the next Uber or Bolt, or some things that use your phone's internal system, like your location. Let's say imaging. Let's say you want to snap, you have to snap things. You can't do that from a web app, right? It's not going to be user friendly. So once you choosing the platform, the next thing that you need to do is platform registration. So sometimes all these things can be done, how do I put them? Simultaneously, right? Or how do I go multitask in a multitasking way, whereby as you are working on your PRD, you can be registering your Apple, right? If you know what you are doing, so you can actually do them at the same time. So it all depends on how you want to build your app. So platform registration from the very beginning, if you are going mobile route, you have to register your app on Apple Store, Google Play Store console. Um, if you have a hosting, if it's web routes, try to get a VPS or cloud hosting, depending on the route that you want to go. Then, if your app has to do with anything license and compliance, like your privacy policy, everything, you need to start setting this up because they are going to be very important. You may not be able to do it at once, but starting the process in the early stage is very, very important, especially if you are building a fintech app. Before for fintech apps, right, it should even start before even research, because if you don't have some certain license, or you cannot partner with some certain companies in order to get the right license, there's no even need to build your app in the first place, right? So now, once you've done all the registrations needed and you are good to go, you've started the process, because not all of them would, get done immediately, especially for Apple, right? So you go to the design phase. So this is where you now start seeing your idea come to life. And this typically take, let's say, here, it can take you a month or months, depending on the kind of app, because you need real-time research, data analysis, questionnaires gone out, depending on the kind of product you're building, right? So your design, you have to build, you can use AI prototypes. So few, let's say in past few years, past 2 years now, a year, AI has become very, very popular, and you can use AI to brainstorm your idea, think about how it's going to look, not look per se, because the looks are not there yet, but how it's going to feel like, how, you want it to work, right? You can use AI to think about that and see how that would come to pass, right? Then we have your design. So you sketch your design, you have your high fidelity and low fidelity design. If you want to go for high fidelity design directly, that's having an app that you can click in terms of prototype, but not coded, just design, right? You can go for this. Then you have to note, you have to have good UX and user experience, and UX writing, very important. The words are directed to your users, and they are good, and they can understand it depending on who your target audience are. So now, once you get this figured out and your design, and probably have a prototype, the next stage is, and this could take a month, right? This could take a month, this could take weeks, depending on what you are building. Sometimes your MVP may not take that long. It also depends on what you are building, so it could take months, right? So we have the I think second to the last stage, or third to the last stage, right? So development. So now this is where you are done with the whole design thing, and the developers swoop in, and they want to take up the app, and you have to think about front end, back end, or mobile app. So if you're also building for PC software, you have to think software, but we're not going that route. Yeah. So front end, who is going to design? If you are going web routes, you have to think front end, right? Even if you're not doing that, you'd have to take up a website, because your privacy policy and some other things. Website is needed, because most of these platforms will ask you when doing registration, do you have a website, and every other thing. And the website is very important. I don't think we have to overlook that. So your backend, very important to create your structures, your database, everything you need in your app to set up your DevOps that helps to move, deploy your apps and everything. Then your mobile app developer, if you're going the mobile route, while some apps, combine everything, but the people that would be consistent are either the back end or the DevOps. Sometimes back end, do DevOps at the same time. So you need to know your tech stack, right? So you need to know what tech stack you're building with. If you're building, going the mobile route, are you building iOS and Android separately, or you're using Flutter to build a cross-platform app? So it all depends on what you want to do. So if you are going, let's say, front, that's a web route. So what's backend architecture or tech stack are you going for? Are you going to use Laravel, or it all depends on what you want to use? But the this tech stack you use must be consistent with the development. It is very important, and you have to know the right tech stack for the right type of app, because not all app use, but most of the times they also use similar kind of tech stack, but not all. So if your app has to do with anything API integration, I think in the beginning you have to actually check for this, because this is also very important. You need to know, especially for fintech apps, you need to know, okay, what type of integration do you need, right? What type of APIs will you be plugged in into your app? So it is very, very important to know this right from the one. Storage, right, from backing up. Then if you are going to be building an app or a web app that has to do with file storage, you need to know, okay, which um, servers you are going to be using. Are you going to go with AWS? Are you going to go with DigitalOcean? Are you going to go whichever? Are you going to go to the VPS? Whatever you're going to use, storage is very important. Security too, we don't even need to talk about that. That is like top notch. Backup, very important. I won't even tell you twice. If you don't back up, whatever your eye sees. So staging a live environment is very important. Sometimes most persons usually ask what this means. So staging mean it's like before something is pushed out, right? There is a staging environment for everyone to test to see how it's going to function before it's pushed out to the public, right? So staging environments are very important so that you don't push out bugs. That sometimes bugs still get to live environment, but at least it's not going to be as severe as what would have been detected in the staging environment, right? Then authentication, user authentication, logging in, and everything. So now all these have several platforms that would have to plug and play in order to get your development ready. But considering whoever is your back end, considering all this is very important, right? And when you have this, you'll be able to develop your app. And if you have the right tool, the right platforms and everything, from hosting, you can start small, you don't need to start big. Then sometimes if your app is API reliant or from other platforms, take for example you're building a SMS app, right? Or all these card that you load data, I think they call them I think this data app, right? I'm forgetting the right words they call them. So yes, they rely on APIs from third parties in order to, because they're not the ones that owns the recharge card. So they help people's they help users recharge their phone and recharge to DSTV and lots more. So there's so many apps. Most of apps actually rely on APIs, especially for example like SMS. If you want to do in-app chats, depending. So a lot of app with different specs, operate on different level of needs, right? But almost every app would cut through almost everything listed here. So now, once you are done with development, what's the next stage? Quality assurance, right? So this is more like the police of your app. So you can be able to track your bug. You have to have a bug tracker. You have a QA. You need to have these all these persons, all these positions are human beings, right? So you need to have a QA, right? Sometimes the backend can do it if right? But sometimes it's always good to have a dedicated person to do your QA, right? So you have bug trackers to make sure you track your bug, fix bug, and make sure whatever bugs have been fixed are not repeating. And if they are repeating, they have to be fixed properly. Then you have manual automated testing. So, like for example, now there's some things you don't have to always do manually, right? So, say for example, now your login, you don't have to always go there to test if login works. There can be some scripts that will be written to keep testing if that process is actually working effectively. While sometimes you can still just rely on manual. So for QAs, it all depends on you know what use case that particular function is. So then you have beta testing. So this is when the app is being built and you feel like okay, you are ready to go live, but you don't want to go live to public user, you can actually go out to beta testers. So you have a group of persons, either a closed testing, open testing. It all depends on what you want to do. So it is very, very important. Then we have release management. So if you want to release in versions like version 1, you want to first of all, let's say you are building a fintech app, right? And you want to say, okay, today we are only just releasing transfers, right? Okay, let's release these. Let's see what happens. Let's see if it's smooth. Version 2, you release transfer withdrawals, beneficiaries, whatnot. So you have a way of managing your releases. So it's also supposed to be in development, right? But QA still kind of handles that just in case. So then you have rollback. Just in case there was a problem, you can also roll back to a last known version that was good. So it's always good to build your app in a way that you can make amends to mistakes, and they are also quick updates. So now, after your quality assurance and everything is good to go, right? You can now we are now going to be talking about launch and post launch. So post launch meaning after launch, what happens? So now during launch, you have to make sure you are always in line with your users. There's no app out there. The best set of apps are the ones that, you know, talk to their users, listen to their users, and in the beginning, you have to be humble, right? And even if you've grown, I think the best set of apps are the ones that listen to their users and update and update what's necessary, because not every request that should be granted you get depend on your current version of that particular app. Then you have user acquisition. So user acquisition is more still embedded in the marketing. So user acquisition is more like, how do you acquire your users? Where are they? So if you work on your link canvas, your PRD, you need to know that, okay, this is where your users are, and you need to know how you would acquire them. It is very, very important. So whatever marketing strategy you have, you need to work on it and elaborate your marketing strategy very well in order to acquire your user, and not only just acquire, user retention. So you have to retain your users. I think I'm going to add that here. So user acquisition and retention. Let's just say user retention, because it's also very, very important. Very important, because it is one thing to acquire a user, and it is another thing for you to retain that user. It is easier said than done, right? So many businesses actually fail in this regard. They get users, but they don't know how to retain them. So yeah. Okay, so the next step is analytics and user tracking. You need to have some analytics embedded in your app. You need to know where users are coming from. If it's a web app, I think there are tons of analytics tools out there. You can track where users are coming from, what buttons are not working, where are they having roadblocks, and all the problems you are having. Sometimes you can use see heat maps. You can most analytics tools are very visual. You can see where the problems are coming from, where they are drop off, where they are their chums, their people, there are all sort of things you can check from your analytics. Different app have different analytics functionality, so it's very important to have it. Then you have collecting feedback. So most apps, especially in their early stage, is very important to have an option where users can drop their feedback, because you want to listen to them, and they may have more important things to say than you think, because they are using the product. You may not be using it, but they will experience it different than you that built it, right? Then you have maintenance and updates, very important. In as much as you've built the app, that's not the end. You need to update it, you need to maintain it, you need to make sure things are working very fine for all touch points of the app, and make sure everything is good to go. So in building your app, this is more like the process. There are lots inside each and every one of these steps. But when you say, okay, this is the roadmap, this is more like the step or the life cycle of an app. And if you have any question, feel free to leave it in the comment below, and you can share to people that need this. And also, if you need an app, you can always reach out to us, and we will get your app idea to life. So bye for now.